There's something I keep seeing at the moment with senior independent advisors and how they use AI tools. And I want to name it because I think it's a real issue and there's so much more to gain out of this. Because they're using AI to pull together proposals, produce documents for the clients, obviously draft email communication, pull together all of the research, and all of that at a speed that simply wasn't possible 2 or 3 years ago. And the output, honestly, is super impressive. We all know that. But when I look at how these practices are actually performing for the client, whether the pipeline is more predictable, whether clients are genuinely clearer on the value that is being created, I think the answer most of the time is no. Because what AI does is it amplifies what's already there, right? Give it a real structure and it produces everything so quickly. Give it a proper process, and yes, the execution of those tools is brilliant. What AI cannot do, though, is create the structure in the first place. And for most senior independent advisors, that structure, that actual operating system that we want to talk about today, just hasn't been built. So what AI is amplifying is really your improvisation, your chaos, your figure it out as you go approach that worked reasonably well when you could hold everything just in your head initially. But and it's just doing that faster now, and it looks considerably more polished while it's doing it. So the issue isn't the tools, it's what they need to work on and whether that already exists in your business. When I talk about an operating system for an independent consulting practice, I'm not talking about your back office, your invoicing, CRM, project management tools. Those things matter eventually. But what I mean is the structure your client actually feels. The things that determine whether a potential client says yes in the first place, whether they understand the value you're creating for them, and whether a finished engagement leads somewhere and doesn't just end with a polite thank you and not much afterwards. So today I want to focus on 2 specific components of that operating system. Not because the other stuff doesn't matter. No, it does. But because those 2 have the most immediate impact potentially on how clients actually experience you and your practice. And they're both areas where AI, once the underlying structure is in place, can do something genuinely useful for you. So the first is what I want to call the signal engine. And the second is what I call value tracking. Let's look into both of those. Most independent advisors I know are where they need them. Almost none of them have built them because it always feels less urgent than the next piece of client work. So that logic is really exactly backwards, and here's why. I want to start with a question I ask pretty much every executive I work with. What actually happens in your first conversation with a potential client, with your prospect? And the answer usually is some version of, well, I'm going to ask them about their situation, listen very carefully, ask good questions, and then go away and think. And a week or 2 later, I'll come back with a proposal that includes some initial observations. And I think that's really reasonable. It's actually quite good. It's what most advisors do. But there's a real cost to it, especially when first impressions matter as much as they do in this kind of work. What I call a signal engine is a different way of running that first conversation. And the version I've found most effective is built around what I call maturity model, right? So you design a diagnostic across 6 to 8 categories that are specific to your area of expertise. If you're a commercial advisor, those might be pricing discipline, customer concentration, sales process maturity, competitive positioning, the things that actually tell you whether a commercial operation is healthy. If you are in HR as an advisor, those might be leadership depth, succession, clarity, culture, retention, talent acquisition strategy. Within each category, you have 2 to 4 questions really, not generic ones, but questions sharpened by your senior experience of what genuinely good looks like in that area and what underdeveloped tends to look like. Now, you've seen these patterns across dozens of organizations and situations. The questions should carry that. The conversation takes 60 to 90 minutes. You take the client through it, gather their responses, then feed everything into your AI signal engine, which today means a well-trained AI that reads those answers through the lens of the framework. The output is a structured view of where their organization sits across each dimension, prioritized with a clear narrative about the biggest gaps and what it would actually mean for the business to close those gaps. Now, think about what that feels like for your prospective client. They came in expecting very little, maybe. Maybe they just felt they were going to talk with you for 45 minutes and then wait a week or two for a proposal. Instead, they leave with a very concrete document that reflects their organization back to them with more clarity than most conversations they've had with people who were inside for years. So they haven't just met a consultant, they've experienced what it's actually like to think alongside you. And that experience, not a case study, not a reference call, is what builds trust fast enough, and it matters. From your side of the table, you've shown rather than told what it is bringing you in. And you've done it in under 2 hours. So that signal engine's output also becomes the natural starting point for the engagement itself, which means the next conversation isn't really about whether they want to work together, it's about where to begin. So you're not doing less work, you're demonstrating more value, faster, and that's a completely different thing. And because that maturity model, that framework stays fixed, and the AI does all the heavy lifting for you, it will get sharper with every client you run it with. So you're not reinventing the diagnostic at each time, you're building something that gets better as you use it. There's another conversation, one that happens at the end of most consulting engagement, that most independent advisors handle really badly. Not because they don't have the answer, but because they haven't really tracked the value. The conversation is some version of, so what actually changed here? And the answer too often is just listing out activities. Oh, we read all of those workshops, the recommendations you received, the documents that were produced. That's not what the client is really asking. They want to know what's actually different in my business because you were there. Now, at Era Group, network of cost reduction specialists, value tracking was relatively straightforward. All of our work was built around cost savings, almost entirely. So every engagement had a baseline, a target, and an actual saving we could measure month by month, quarter by quarter, across every project. And at the end of a 24 or 36 months engagement, the conversation was simple. Here's what we set out to save, here's what we actually saved. There wasn't much to argue about. Now that kind of clean financial measurement isn't always available in your work, I get it. And a lot of senior advisory work, strategy, leadership, commercial transformation is harder to reduce to one single KPI. And that's exactly where advisors give up on tracking and default to describing their activities instead. But it doesn't have to be really complicated. Even when the value is less immediately measurable, you can still make an effort to track it. That's my whole point. You just need to do one thing at the start. Agree what success actually looks like with your client specifically, and then break it into milestones. If you're helping a founder-led business, for example, to get ready for institutional investment, all your milestones are probably going to be financial reporting at institutional standard by month 3. Management team structure finalized by month 6. First investor conversations live by month 9, wherever, right? Each of those is clear, done or not done, and you can show real progress against each of those as the engagement develops. At the end of each month or each quarter, you put together a simple dashboard. Not a report, just a clear view of the milestones you agreed, where you are against each one, what moved in the last period, and what the focus is for the next one. What that value tracker, that dashboard does is something more interesting than just tracking. It changes the nature of the whole client relationship for you. The client stops wondering what they're paying for and starts watching progress towards something they really care about. You stop having to defend your value at renewal and start sharing in the milestone moment. And the other stakeholders who might otherwise be fairly passive about the work or slightly aggressive against it become genuinely invested in that shared goal because they can see it on a page and it feels achievable. The advisors who do this well don't just renew more easily, they run a fundamentally different kind of engagement and relationship, one that clients want to extend, talk about, and bring others into, because everyone can actually see what's changing. So in today's world, if you can show what's actually changing and by how much, you're leaving the most important part of the conversation to chance. I started with a warning about AI tools and just amplifying your chaos, right? Now let me end with a slightly different take. I would admit that AI is genuinely one of the most powerful tools available to all independent advisors right now. What one person can produce and demonstrate, has shifted in ways that are, unreal. I totally agree. But that only holds if there's something real underneath for the tools to work with. A well-built signal engine, like a maturity model, running on a proper AI layer can make your first client conversation more impressive than anything you could have produced 2 or 3 years ago. And consistent value tracking, that dashboard, that AI handling the reporting layer produces the kind of documented proof that previously required a whole team to do. So build your system first, then the tools that are available have something real to work with. The operating system is component 4 of what I call the flywheel within the second curve architecture. And that complete framework is in the anchor video on this channel if you want to learn more about the entire second curve architecture. Link is in the description. I'll see you in the next one.